is Terry Bradshaw, quarterback. Pittsburgh Steelers.
It's 7:15. There's a new home run champion of all time, and it's Henry Aaron.
This is baseball, Major League Baseball. And this is
ABC's Monday Night Baseball, live from Fenway Park in Boston, Massachusetts.
Looking. He's under the gun. He's flat. He throws. It is.
It is time for Past Our Prime, and we are just a couple of days from Thanksgiving, a day of feasting, family, and football, and a day to give thanks for all the blessings in our life. I'm blessed to have two good friends who have made this show a priority in their life, Bill Mahoney and Mark Hoffman. Hey, guys, happy Thanksgiving.
Hey, thanks. Look at
Yeah.
what do you? I mean, I can't wait. I'm having turkey this year. Usually, I try to make something different. I'm excited.
Nice.
Yeah.
I've had people call me a turkey, but you know.
The three of us spent many holidays, many Thanksgivings working. I was wondering if either of you had a particular Thanksgiving you recall that you spent not with your family or friends, but at work.
My favorite actually story is there have been some Thanksgivings where I have, eaten the meal they provided for us at the station, and you get double time too for working Thanksgiving. But my favorite was, for some reason on Thanksgiving, they decided to split the shift, the day side and a night side producer, which was weird. And there was only one early show, a 6. So I did the 6 o'clock and then left at 6:30 and still was able to have Thanksgiving dinner with the family. So that was perfect.
Yeah.
And I got the double time.
Anything for you, Billy?
Yeah, I think I remember once at Channel 9 working a Thanksgiving, and it was one late show because they had movies, and they actually brought in some really nice food. I mean, a really nice turkey, and they brought in like 6 pies. It was so great because usually a lot of times when you go into any place, their food consists of something cold or something not that good. They really did. I remember it was in the back conference room. And I thought, oh, I'll go get something. And I said, I saw one of the editors come back and he had a huge plate. I thought, where'd you get that? He goes, it's back there. It was just fantastic. So it made working that day not so bad.
I got a good one. So I started at KHJ in 1987. I was interning, and a good friend of mine, Tony Richards, was the main producer there, and he takes Thanksgiving Day off, and he brings in Mike Forrest to fill in for him that day, and as I'm interning. So, I'm not working, but getting paid, and I'm still coming in on Thanksgiving to help out. But that's what you did back then. So, and 38 years later, I still know both Tony and Mike, which is crazy that it's almost 40 years. But anyway, the next year, 1988. Thanksgiving comes, and Mike either had a full-time job or had decided that he didn't want to work on Thanksgiving. So Tony looks at me, I'm 20 years old, and says, hey, do you want to produce on Thanksgiving? So the first day I ever produced on my own was Thanksgiving 1988. And, it took me about a half second to say, yes, I'll do that. And the big story 2 days later was number 2 USC was hosting number 1 Notre Dame. Rodney Peete was the QB. The Trojans were coming off a win. They had just beaten Troy Aikman and the 4th-ranked Bruins. So, I remember getting in there.
Was that on Thanksgiving Day, not on Saturday? That was on Thanksgiving Day?
No, 2 days later.
Oh, gotcha.
But I remember, getting in there at 9 a.m. for 9 o'clock shows. I was so nervous, and but it was a good day. And like I said, 37 years later, very thankful for the stuff we've been able to do. Been a great ride and lots of friends. So.
Old school tales, new school fire. The scorecard said we'll take it higher.
All right, let's get to the scorecard, shall we? Mark, what's going on in the ABA?
Well, not a lot. The league's like collapsing here. So looks like that the San Diego Sails are going to be no more. And they're going to go the way of the Baltimore Claws. And the league is going from like 10 to 8 to 7 to 6 teams. Now, the ABA claims that it has six star franchises: the Kentucky Colonels, New York Nets, Denver Nuggets, Indiana Pacers, San Antonio Spurs, and the Spirit of St. Louis, which might be going to Cincinnati. Well, at this point, it's not a done deal. There's going to be a merger, but there will be a merger. And the interesting thing is Kentucky and St. Louis didn't make it, and we've talked about that. But it's just so fascinating because like I loved the ABA because it was such a mystery league. And I remember the San Diego Conquistadors because I could get their games on the radio in LA. And Wilt Chamberlain was their coach for a while and you could pick up all the games. Well, apparently they sold the franchise in 75 and they renamed it the San Diego Sails, changed their color scheme and everything. But then, the Sails just nobody showed up, They had a stadium that was like the San Diego Sports Arena had like over 14,000, seats or whatever, and nobody was showing up to the games. So, it just got to the point where it was like, I think they attracted 3,000 fans for their home opener. And that was like the best crowd they got. They got 1,670 fans. Talk about good seats still available for their third and last home game. And so they ended up shutting it all down. And I thought it was just fascinating how the ABA was just hanging on by a string, but it managed to play that final season and then merge with the NBA.
Well, you'd be
A very sad existence after
very
79,
suffering.
78.
Yes, yes.
Fenway Park, Billy. It's a national landmark there in Boston. They're trying to bring it up to some modern day standards.
They are. They're having a few things done to it this winter. One, this what makes people real happy, is they're patting the outfield fence where Fred Lynn ran into it in Game 6 of the World Series. It looked like he was dead, and then he got up and kept playing. Another, which people are not happy with, is the installation of a vast electronic message board, complete with instant replay at the top of the center field bleachers. Some call this a desecration. An organization called Pop-Up, which stands for People Opposing Pernicious and Unnecessary Progress, has been protesting that the glittering new widescreen board will destroy the antique charm of the sexagenarian ballpark. James Fogarty, who at that time was a 25-year-old pop-up lawyer, says the new scoreboard represents creeping Finleyism. Now, James Fogarty would be 75 now.
Yes, and he would not like the what they've done to Fenway Park in the last 50 years. They put
What else did
on
that is that board still there in
Oh my God. I'm sure that board isn't there. Now there's a humongous board out there now. And there's seats on the monster and they've done all sorts of things to make it, more modern and yet still somehow keep the charm. And I think they've done a pretty damn good job.
Right. I mean, if I went to a game at Fenway, I would want to sit in those seats above the Green Monster.
They'd be so fun, no question. Yep. Wide receiver Dave Williams made a remarkable return to play just days after knee surgery, thanks to a new device called an arthroscope that allows doctors to repair cartilage through a tiny incision. Though experts caution it only applies to certain injuries, the procedure marks a major medical advance, even if Williams's comeback was short-lived when the WFL league folded soon after. So this is arthroscopic surgery, which is now, pretty commonplace in the sports world. But I just thought it was funny that, here's this little tiny blurb. And, back then we're like, what the hell is that? I don't know what that is. And we certainly do now. So they said it. Bum Phillips, Mark, what did he say?
He's a bum. He said that he was talking about Billy White Shoes Johnson, who's their great kick return specialist. And he said, Billy is an equal opportunity runner. He gives everyone on the other team a chance to tackle him.
Yeah. And
which few did.
And they're not very successful at it.
No. He has some spectacular kick returns.
Yep. Billy, Andy Johnson. I love this one.
Yeah, he's a New England running back. He was once drafted as a third baseman for the Baltimore Orioles. He asked when he decided on football. When I saw Brooks Robinson play. Yeah, you're not breaking in that lineup anytime soon.
I think football sounds good right about now. Their goal is gold in 76. The Soviet Union's national basketball team is in America. They're playing a lot of the top programs in the college world, coming off their 1972 controversial gold medal win in the Olympics. So, Billy, what are they doing here, and how many games are they playing?
They're here they're doing a national tour of the United States, and they're playing 14 games in 26 days. And the thing is that when you read the article, it just says they like the basketball, but they all had a voracious appetite for capitalistic goods and services. And a lot of them brought their broken radios and everything here to get fixed.
Right.
Yeah.
They did not like Big Macs.
No, yeah, they did not like
don't blame
McDonald's.
them.
They enjoyed. I love Big Macs. Right.
I loved them as a kid.
I loved them till I was about, I don't know, 18 maybe, and then I was like, ooh.
They like the free pizza, but they more than that, they like the jeans, shoes, and electronics. So
Yep.
America is being good to the boys from the USSR. Their controversial 72 Olympic gold over the U.S. still lingered as both sides looked ahead to a rematch in 76. How did that turn out for them, Mark?
Well, the whole reason they did this tour, this 26-day, 14-game tour, was because they wanted to win gold again in 76. Well, they not only failed to win gold, the U.S. won gold, they didn't even take silver. Yugoslavia took silver, and Russia had to settle for bronze. But the whole unfair thing was these athletes for the Soviet team were professionals, okay, playing our college kids. And in '88, we decided enough of that. Our pros will play your pros too.
Yep.
But yeah, they played them tough. I mean, North Carolina barely beat them.
Coaches like, speaking of North Carolina, Dean Smith and Indiana's Bob Knight viewed the visit as a warning sign, prompting U.S. officials to plan more rigorous tryouts and practices to protect American basketball supremacy. Yeah, because we ended up losing to them the Soviet Union won the gold in 88, and Yugoslavia won the silver. So U.S. came in and won the bronze with college kids, and we were like, oh, have you guys heard of Magic Johnson and Michael Jordan and David Robinson,
Bird, Barkley, and my God,
we're gonna introduce them to you in 1952.
But you think on those teams, you look back and say some of those guys say, I played against Michael Jordan. I
Right?
was on the same court with Barkley. I was the same court with Magic and Bird and Ewing. Just amazing. Just to be able to say you did that.
Absolutely. Yeah. One more heart attack victim. The St. Louis Cardinals staged another thrilling comeback in the National Conference's Eastern Division, defeating the Redskins 20-17 in overtime, thanks to Jim Hart's arm and Jim Botkin's foot. Despite turnovers and close calls, the Cardinals continue to win close games. These guys, Mark, are known as the Cardiac Kids.
You know why they're the Cardiac Kids? Because 8 games were decided in the final minute that year, and they won 7 of those 8 games. So they always found a way to pull stuff off. And if I can borrow a song, is it from Damn the Yankees? You gotta have heart, tons and tons and tons of heart. For Jim Hart in the offense. By the way, wasn't my singing?
Oh, it's for Jim Hart.
Yeah, wasn't my singing awesome? Anyway, and the funny thing about Jim Hart, he quarterbacked the Cardinals from 1966 to 83. I mean, he was Mr. Cardinal, but his last season in the league, he played for
Washington.
The opponent in this article, the Redskins. And the Cardinals that year finished 11-3. They won the NFC East, not the Cowboys. But they lost in the playoffs to the Rams. And then the Cowboys had the Hail Mary to beat the Vikings, and then the Cowboys beat the Rams to go to the Super Bowl.
Yeah, Billy, 11-3 for the Cardinals. That is not normal for this organization.
No, they had a 3-year record of 31-11. So you're thinking, man, they're ascending. Cardinals look like they're going to be a team to be reckoned with next 10 years. No, they went 32 years before they would have another double-digit win season. And they made the playoffs only twice in those years.
Jim Hart's final minute passes to Mel Gray and others set up the overtime win in this game against the Redskins. Bill, it seemed like Hart was just throwing TDs left and right, but that's just because the game back then was so different. It wasn't that many.
No, he threw 19 touchdowns in 14 games.
I mean, I gotta,
That
Matthew Stafford threw 4 the other day. He's
Yes, he
gotta
did.
have,
He's
he's
had
gotta have,
4 in how many straight games?
right?
If Matthew Stafford played in those days, he would have already been in Canton. That was like second year. They'd say, put him in. Yeah. My golly. And Jim Hart was one of the better quarterbacks in the NFL.
Oh yeah, yeah, for a long time.
Yep, yep.
I
And
guess if
Jim
there's,
Bakken, their kicker, was a decent. I remember Jim Bakken and
I always thought his name was Bacon, so here's what I know.
Bakken. I think
I,
it's Bakken.
I
Like
guess if
Marina
there's a,
Bachman.
I guess if there's a way to make a game closer, we'll think of it," said St. Louis coach Don Coryell. "I don't like some of the decisions I make, but I have a lot of trust in Jim, don't call me Bacon Bakken's foot. It's better than my judgment." So Don Coryell winning in St. Louis, and he's about to go to San Diego and win there as well.
Eric Coryell.
Yep.
Where have all the Rangers gone? After being traded from Boston to the Rangers, Phil Esposito struggled to adjust to a new locker room. "It's like there's a jinx on it or something," said Esposito about the Rangers locker room. It's a big trade, Billy. Esposito goes from Boston to New York for Brad Park.
Yeah, if you're a Boston fan at that time, Esposito averaged 137 points the past 5 years in Boston. But whatever the jinx was in New York really happened. It really hurt him. He had only 67 points with the Rangers that year. But Park, he actually, blossomed there. He was great, and he was great, obviously, when he was with the Rangers. He was 8 years in Boston, and this is, I mean, for us people that don't understand it, I'll explain. He never had a negative plus minus. He had a plus 69 in 77, 78, meaning that if you have a minus, that means you're on the ice for a goal. So he was so damn good that he was, keeping the puck out of that while he was on the ice, while also scoring about 60 to 80 points. Great defenseman.
And anyone know the date of that trade?
No, what would
Oh,
it
Mark,
be?
tell me, something go down that day?
Yeah, the date of the trade was November 7th, 1975. You know what I was doing on November 7th, 1975?
Celebrating.
I was getting my driver's license. I had turned 16
Ah.
years old that day, and I went down to the DMV and got my license, and I was ready to drive.
Were you in a fantasy hockey league then?
No, I was not.
And the people on the 405 have not been safe since.
Yes. Yep.
Yep, I got it in Culver City, the Culver City DMV.
Look at you.
Yep. My sister drove me down there, and then I drove back. And then I had to get back in time for football practice. So no celebrating. No like racing or
The Rangers experienced their worst start in 12 years with a 7-10-2 record, and so they had massive trades. They said, "That's it. Hoffman's driving. We got to break up the team." So they traded Brad Park, Eddie Giacomin, Gene Rattel, and Derek Sanderson in just 10 days, with many of them excelling in their new places. Sanderson scored 5 goals in 6 games for those St. Louis Blues. So nothing working out well right now for the New York Rangers.
No, and then the GM of the Rangers, I want to say it's not Harry Sinden. I forgot the name. It's off the top of my head.
Emile Francis.
Emile Francis put every player on the trading block.
Right?
Yeah, he put every player. Dang.
But
we are starting over.
Exactly. Brad Park.
By the way, I want you guys to know that, just because I knew what I was doing on my 16th birthday, the day of this trade, doesn't mean I knew what I was doing on my 17th or 18th or 13th or 12th.
Yeah,
16's
yeah.
big, man. That's
You
because you
do.
get your driver's license, okay?
You do, Mark. Come on, man. You do.
A dash into history for now. There were some amazing college running backs in this 1975 season. Archie Griffin, Tony Dorsett, Chuck Muncie, and Ricky Bell are breaking records for yardage, consistently averaging over 100 yards per game and drawing praise from coaches and scouts alike as the best the sport has seen in ages. Some scouts think that there are as many as 19 running backs that could be drafted in the NFL come that spring. So let's just go through a few of them, Billy. Who jumped out at you?
Tony Dorsett played 4 years at Pitt, 6,000 plus yards. Archie Griffin played 4 years at Ohio State, 5,100 yards. And then Joe Washington, which was a guest on our show, he had close to 4,000 yards in 4 years. And then I just thought I would do a little bit of going ahead. There's one player we know out there. We know Barry Sanders. He only had 3,556 yards in his 3 years at Oklahoma State. But his final year in 1888, he had 2,600 yards and 37 touchdowns.
I have a good Barry Sanders story from that season. So they ended up going to a bowl game and they're playing Wyoming. And I don't remember what it was. It was one of those, December 28th holiday bowl, something like that. And so I'm 20, not old enough to be placing bets in a sports book in Vegas. So I'm there and I don't know what the spread is, but Oklahoma State's, laying whatever, 3, 4, 5 points against Wyoming. And I go up and I, very shyly and unconfidently, I say, 55 to win 50 on Oklahoma State. And he's like, it's you got to find out what the number is. Each team is assigned a number. So you don't say Oklahoma State, you go $55 to win 50 on game 685, and that's Oklahoma State. So I say it. He helps me, walks me through the thing. Being underage didn't matter at all. Oklahoma State wins that game. I want to say 55-10 or something. I mean, it's just a blowout. And I am thinking, oh my goodness, this is the easiest way to make money that there's ever been. And thousands of dollars later, I have learned that is not the case.
Yes.
Yeah.
People remember the losses more than they remember the wins.
Yeah.
Mark, tell me about this Herb Lusk.
Well, Herb Lusk was one of the guys that already had a 200-yard rushing game, which back then was not very common. Today, you see it all the time, but back then, it was known as the praying tailback of Long Beach State. And for those of you who don't remember, Long Beach State did have a football program at one time. He ranks third all time in rushing at Long Beach State too, but with only 2,142 yards. I mean, that's like a season now for some college running backs. He actually got drafted by the Eagles in 1976, and he played 3 years in Philadelphia. So he had some pro experience. He appeared in 28 games, rushed for 483 yards, 2 touchdowns. He's a religious leader and pastor now in Pennsylvania or in Philadelphia area. So,
oh no,
yeah, Herb Lusk.
Archie Griffin is running towards his second straight Heisman Trophy winner. Woody Hayes says Archie Griffin is the greatest running back I've ever seen in college. He's had 31 consecutive games of 100 yards or more. Ricky Bell is averaging 174 yards per game. And then there's the guy on the cover of this magazine, Chuck Muncie, averaging 129 yards per game. He's got 1,800 yards from scrimmage, 15 touchdowns. He would finish second in the Heisman voting. Just a great player. Went on to have a very good NFL career. The third overall pick in the 76 draft by the Saints. A 3-time Pro Bowl back, once in New Orleans, twice in San Diego. And in 1981, 1,500 yards rushing and receiving and 19 touchdowns for those Chargers.
And those glasses, man.
Yeah, that's what I remember.
Name another running back with glasses.
Dickerson.
Oh, those
Good job, Scott. Way to bring it home.
But were those more goggles and glasses?
Still the same.
One of the guys who used to hand the ball off to Muncie and throw to him on occasion as well was Dan Fouts, and throw is what Dan did best. Drafted out of the University of Oregon in the 3rd round of the 1973 draft, Fouts came into his own in 1979 when he threw for over 4,000 yards for the first of 3 straight seasons, the first player to ever throw 4,000 yards in 2 straight seasons, and he did it 3 years in a row. And he would have been 4 if not for the strike in 1982, but I digress. So Air Coryell was born with receivers like John Jefferson, Charlie Joyner, Wes Chandler, and tight end Kellen Winslow. Fouts had his pick of who to get the ball to and did it very well. A six-time Pro Bowler and the AP Offensive Player of the Year in '82. And when he retired after 15 seasons with the San Diego Chargers, only Fran Tarkenton had more passing yards than his 43,040. And in 1993, he was fitted with a gold jacket as the Hall of Fame came a-calling. One of the greatest QBs to ever play the game, Dan Fouts. Hey, thanks for joining us on the Past Our Prime podcast.
Hey, it's great to be with you guys. Thank you.
So I know, when the Hall of Fame came calling, that was exciting, but this has got to be right up there for you, having us give you a call.
Well, it's been a while since I got a call like this, that's for sure.
As we do here, Dan, let's start first off with the guy on the cover of the November 24th, 1975 issue of Sports Illustrated. While he was at Cal, Chuck Muncie finished second in the Heisman voting that year. Comes to San Diego midway through the 1980 season and makes an impact, but in 1981, over 1,500 total yards and 19 touchdowns. Tell our listeners how good Chuck was.
Chuck was unique. There's no question. His combination of size and speed and power and toughness really set him apart. Tremendous teammate and just a guy that, we sorely miss. He died way too young, but as a player and a person, universally loved.
We know he had some demons that he was able to overcome. What was he like off the field? We know one thing that we all talk about all the time that we loved is he played with the glasses. There's not too many guys on the field that had the glasses. So kind of a character.
Well, he needed glasses to find a way to catch my passes, I guess. But Chuck was a fun-loving guy. I wasn't a participant in any of his antics, but he, as I said earlier, he was loved by his teammates and anybody that knew him.
Now, yeah, Dan, this is Bill. I'm one of the co-hosts here. Just wanted to say that it is wonderful having you here. I feel like I've grown up with you. But when you talk about Chuck Muncie, they say he was one of the most gifted running backs they'd ever seen. What made him so different physically, or is it mentally, from other running backs at the time?
Well, he was bigger. Number one, I think just an imposing figure. He was bigger than some of the guys trying to tackle him. I think he weighed somewhere between 225 and 240 at times. And regardless of how much he weighed, his speed never changed, and his power. There were a lot of tacklers around the NFL at the time that refused to even take him on because he would punish them. He was just that physical type of player.
And how important was he? I know with Eric Coryell, it was about throwing, but how important was Muncie to that offense?
He was extremely important because it takes, we like to run a lot of tosses with him to get him out wide, to be able to use his speed and his vision. And what that does to a defense is it takes a little steam out of their pass rush because those defensive ends can't pin their ears back and just come after the quarterback. They got to worry about Muncie coming around the corner. Mm-hmm. So that combination of his running ability and the pass blocking that I received really led to a lot of the success that we had.
Hi, Dan. It's Mark Hoffman. I'm one of the co-hosts here too. So Chuck had some demons and had some problems in his personal life after football, but he also found redemption. Can you talk about his youth foundation and how he came back to help people after he has experienced so many problems?
Well, that's just part of Chuck. I mean, he was a good-hearted guy and a smart guy, and he cared about kids, and he realized that he was not setting the best example that he could as a player, but that all changed later on for him, and he got straightened out, and he helped to straighten out a lot of kids.
So speaking of the Chargers themselves, when Don Coryell came over, how much of a difference did that make for your career, for the Chargers as a team?
For my career, we wouldn't be having this podcast with me on it if it wasn't for Don Coryell. I owe him so much, not just in my football life, but in my personal life as well. But when he took over, we felt we had personnel on our team that could win, but we didn't quite have the guidance from the coaching staff that he provided for us. And his system, obviously, one of the most creative and famous that the league's ever seen. And luckily for me, the people in St. Louis, when he was coaching there, decided to fire him for some reason. And if they hadn't fired him, you'd be talking to Jim Hart today, because he'd be in the Hall of Fame as the Cardinal quarterback. He put up great numbers with the Cardiac Cardinals back in St. Louis. And, I owe, whoever decided to let Don Coryell leave the St. Louis Cardinals, that was really helped us all in San Diego.
Besides Coryell, there was another coach I think that was a big factor in your life, because I think after the first 3 years of your career, you had maybe 20 more interceptions and touchdowns. But then Bill Walsh came in as an assistant coach with the Chargers.
Yeah, he was passed over when Paul Brown retired in Cincinnati, and Paul Brown decided to hire Bill Johnson as the head coach. And Bill was thought to be in line for that job when Paul retired, but he didn't get the job, so he left. And thank God he did, because he came to San Diego and really straightened out my game and got my game headed in the right direction.
Now, Dan, in today's world, quarterbacks get drafted in April and they're starting in September. And they're also getting very large paychecks. And that's probably one of the reasons that they aren't given the time to develop like guys back in your day, Bradshaw, Stabler, Staubach. These guys had a lot of times where they were the backup quarterback. And when they came in, they really knew the system. How important was it for you to get that early playing time, but also kind of like learn and kind of get time to really develop as a quarterback?
It was invaluable. There's no question. I was fortunate my rookie year to look next to my locker to a guy by the name of Johnny Unitas. He came to San Diego his last year, which happened to be my first year. And, just watching him practice, sitting with him in meetings, after meetings, talking, just going over game plans and things like that, I learned a great deal about the finer points of playing quarterback from Johnny U. And so I was very, very fortunate there, to start my career with a legend like that, then to have Bill Walsh in my fourth year, and then 2 years later have Don Coryell come by. So to be able to learn from all these great men and their systems and how they thought about pro football, how they thought about the position of quarterback, really helped me, obviously, attain the success that we had.
As a 21, 22-year-old rookie, how do you put aside, I'm a quarterback here with the Chargers with, oh my God, that's Johnny Unitas. There's got to be a level of like, my God, the guy who's done it better than anyone right next to me.
Well, I still have a lot of pinch marks from pinching myself when I looked over and see Unitas there. In fact, there was one day when he stepped out of the locker room and I looked down at his famous high top shoes, and I don't know why I did it, but I tried them on.
How they fit?
And they felt so good. They were. Anyway, I had to take them off quick because I saw him coming back to the locker room. The thing about Unitas, that we had a great relationship for a short time because he got injured and left the team after about 4 or 5 games. But prior to that departure, as I said, I was able to pick up on a number of nuances from him.
You know, you talked a little bit about Don Coryell, and you said it just struck me. You said he helped you on and off the field. What did he do for you? How did he change your life?
Well, obviously the success that we had, and the quarterback gets a lot of credit, and a lot of good things happen. Um, Making the Pro Football Hall of Fame is beyond belief and beyond imagination. You don't have a career with that goal in mind. You have a career with who do we play on Sunday and how are we going to beat them. But Don and I became closer after we got through playing and coaching, and I cherish those moments as much as any during the football season.
So obviously, Eric Coryell, that offense changed football. Did you realize at the time that you were rewriting the playbook for future generations?
No, we were just trying to beat our future opponent. But we knew that there were things that were different, and we knew that there were things that were difficult for defenses to try to stop, and that was Coryell. His belief in the passing game really stems back to his coaching days at San Diego State, and his whole philosophy at San Diego State was that at that time in college football, SC was a tremendous powerhouse. UCLA, both, would go out and really cast a wide net for football players and power running backs and guys like O.J. Simpson and guys like Marcus Allen. And Coryell at San Diego State knew he couldn't compete with that type of recruitment. So he did know that because of the weather conditions in Southern California, that throwing the ball was ideal. And you could recruit quarterbacks easier. You could recruit receivers easier than you can, a guy like a Chuck Muncie. So that's why he became such a passing guru. But if you go back in his history, you will see that he was an assistant coach for John McKay at USC. And the story goes that he was one of the offensive coaches, and SC was having trouble with the timing with their fullback blocking for their halfback. And I said halfback because they didn't have the I formation yet until Coryell got there. And that was Coryell's idea, was to put the halfback behind the fullback deep enough at 8 yards so that the timing of the block of the fullback would work out better with the running and the cutting of the tailback. So Coryell knew a lot about the running game as well, but as a head coach at San Diego State, he knew he had to throw the ball to win. And he had great quarterbacks at San Diego State like Don Horn and Dennis Shaw and Jesse Freitas and Brian Sipe. So all those guys could really wing it. And receivers like Gary Garrison and Haven Moses, guys that could really catch it.
It's a shame that the running game at SC never took off.
Yeah. Yeah, all those Heisman trophies that they had to carry around.
When I think of Don Coryell and I think of you, I think of that playoff game, the Epic in Miami. And I remember in my living room watching that game, and I'd never seen a game with so many twists and turns. Looking back, how memorable that day was it for you?
Well, it was an exhausting day, number one. The hot, humid afternoon that turned into night. We did have an excellent start to the game, going up 24-0. But the problem was there were 3 more quarters to play. The effort put forth by both teams was really special. The thing I remember most, obviously, the back and forth was part of it. Starting feeling, after they run the hook and lateral, that we knew we were in for a fight. We always played Miami well, but we knew that being a playoff game and a Don Shula team, that second half was going to be a rough one. But towards the end of the game and in overtime, I just felt so confident in the pass protection that I got from my line and the frustration that the defensive line of the Dolphins had because of their inability to get to me. That allowed me to work with Winslow and Wes Chandler and Charlie Joyner and to get the ball to them, and so they could do what they had to do. And Kellen was phenomenal, but what's overlooked is that both Charlie and Wes each had over 100 yards in receiving that game as well, which is a remarkable feat for any team. So the thing that I guess is the greatest thing for us Chargers is that obviously my group never played in a Super Bowl, but millions and millions of people remember that game, and the same millions and millions couldn't tell you who won Super Bowl 27 or 37. That game just stands out.
Yeah, and it was ironic. I told you I was watching the game on TV with some friends that I was visiting friends at San Diego State. So I'm watching the game in San Diego, and it was just crazy how the campus actually went crazy after that game. But growing up, you weren't a Chargers fan or something. You were a 49ers fan because of your dad, right?
Well, I'm still kind of a 49er fan because of that, growing up in San Francisco. And my dad was the voice of the 49ers for about 20 years. And that allowed me to tag along and know the players and be a ball boy on the sidelines at times and work in the press box next to my dad at times. So for a child, it was an awesome experience to be able to be a part of that, be able to play catch with guys like Wyatt Tittle and John Brody and Hugh McElhaney and Joe Perry and Bob St. Clair and Leo Nomalini. I mean, I could name you the starting lineups for years and years of the 49ers. In fact, my high school football team, the St. Ignatius Wildcats, our home field was Kezar Stadium. And so it was all pretty good.
I mean, did your dad think that you would become a quarterback, or do you think he'd follow you in the broadcast business, which you eventually did anyway?
Well, I don't know if my dad thought either of those things. He probably just thought I should get better grades.
Like all dads.
Yes, like all dads. It's known, that Miami game, as the Kellen Winslow game, but it could have been known as the Dan Fouts game. You go 33 of 53 for a franchise playoff record, 433 yards and 3 touchdowns. The attempts, completions, and passing yards were all NFL postseason records at the time. And you guys, like you said, it's 90 degrees and humid. And then the next week, you go to Cincinnati, wind chill, they say almost negative 60 degrees. What was that week like?
It was cold.
All right. That's Dan Fouts, everybody. Thank you very much.
Good night, everybody.
Other than that, I don't remember a thing. The thing that you're missing in the whole deal is that, we're in San Diego and we got to go to Miami, and then we got to go all the way back to San Diego, and then we got to go all the way to Cincinnati. Mm-hmm. And the travel in those days for us was never nonstop because I don't know if we're a cheap organization, but we just didn't have a plane big enough to take us across the country. So a normal 5-hour flight would turn into an 8-hour flight because of our inability to make it in one stop without a stop. So we'd have to refuel always somewhere in Oklahoma City. It seemed like was our refueling spot. So that's not an excuse or anything, because the Bengals played better than we did that day. And, my hat's off to Kenny Anderson, because he was outstanding in the same crummy conditions. And in fact, Kenny and I talk all the time about that day, and we share the same frostbite in our fingers and toes that we had and that we have now, because we couldn't wear gloves. At that time, there weren't gloves that were good enough to be able to throw a ball in. So we suffered a little bit.
Wow. So to this day, you still have after effects from playing in that weather in Cincinnati? Yeah,
we both do. It never goes away. It's tough to convince people that you live and play in San Diego that you've got frostbite, especially when you're trying to, talk to the insurance company about something like that.
Dan, when I think of the Chargers, I think of two players. I think of LaDainian Tomlinson, and I think of you. On January 12th, 2017, that's when the team announced they were leaving San Diego and going to Los Angeles. How was that day for you, and how sad are you that they left San Diego?
Well, I am obviously sad. I'm more sad for the fans of San Diego, Charger fans that were so good to us as players and packed the stadium and really supported us tremendously. And if you look back at the history of the Chargers, they started in Los Angeles and didn't make it there for 1 year. And then, some brilliant men decided to move them to San Diego, build a new stadium. And it made San Diego a big league city because up to that point, San Diego was thought of as a military town, retirement town on the border of Mexico and the desert and the ocean. It's really kind of an island, if you will, because of its geography. But when the Chargers came to town, the Padres came a couple of years later, and the city just boomed.
Yeah, and then back in San Diego, you talked a little bit about Kellen Winslow. Talk to me what it was like to throw to a guy like Charlie Joyner or JJ Jefferson, and how you manage all those personalities and try to get the ball to all these guys.
Well, the common denominator for all the great receivers that I played with is their intelligence. And then you added to that their unselfish attitude and the realization that because of the system, there is no primary receiver. The system, as the play unfolds, tells you who the primary receiver is. And because they're smart and unselfish, they knew that, I wasn't playing favorites with anyone. I was just doing what the defense dictated. And because of that, they knew that their day or their game would come, or their quarter would come, or their series of plays would come, and they'd be the focus guy because of what the defense was telling me to do. So, I think the thing that I appreciate more than anything is because you had to be smart in this offense. You can't make mistakes because there's so many guys relying on you. Sure, you make a mistake once in a while, but you never make the same mistake twice because you figure it out immediately. The system allows you to figure out what you did wrong and what you did right each time. So, and plus the toughness of those guys, because I would force the ball and try to, throw it in the crowd and hope that one of them would catch it. But the thing that, after I'd send their wives or girlfriends flowers after the game because of the injuries that they may have, they told them that you want to be on the highlight show, you got to make that one-handed catch.
People forget just how good of a wide receiver John Jefferson was. What made him so special?
His ability to make the impossible catch in a crowd, and his enthusiasm and joy of the game. JJ really is the guy that started the whole Charger power movement with his, and in those days, players weren't as demonstrative as they are now. Partly because there was no ESPN Sports Center that would show every time a player would celebrate instead of showing why he's celebrating. But JJ, he could make the toughest catch. And when people ask me to compare those four guys, Jefferson, Chandler, Winslow, and Joyner, and they ask me who's the best of the four, I can't say. I can only categorize. And that's what I would say about JJ, is that he could make the impossible catch and did many times. Now, Charlie was the most reliable guy ever. He could read a defense and his speed matched my speed. Winslow is a tremendous mismatch anywhere you want to go. Against a linebacker, against a defensive back, a strong safety, Winslow was a mismatch. Wes Chandler, he catch the ball, could run through an entire defense. His athleticism and ability to make guys miss and put it in the end zone, and he could make a tough catch too. So I was blessed, obviously, very, very blessed.
We haven't even talked about James Brooks and what he brought to that offense. He was a weapon for you guys.
James Brooks, that was one of the worst trades in the history of football, trading James Brooks to Cincinnati for Pete Johnston, because JB had that, Auburn running back. When you look at that lineage of great running backs that they had, and I'll include in that Lionel Little trained James too. But what James Brooks did is, especially in that Miami game, that tying touchdown was just a brilliant play on his part. That was a play that we ran many, many times. And in that game, we had run it a number of times and had success getting the ball to Winslow. But on that play, they had double teamed Kellen, and I really had nothing to go to. So I thought I put it up softly enough for Winslow to make a play in the corner of the end zone. And then out of absolutely nowhere comes JB. And James makes this catch to tie the game. And in all the thousands of times we'd run that play, that position of halfback never factored in to catching a pass. That's the first time in that history of that play that halfback ever caught a pass. And it's one of the biggest pass receptions ever.
I always think of a football team as the quarterback's like the father, and then the wide receivers, the running backs, the tight ends, his weapons are his kids. So when you ask them, who's your favorite kid, you can't really answer that. They all bring something unique to the table.
Oh, I don't know about that.
I thought it was a great analogy, but what do I know?
No, I love all my kids.
So you had a little small career outside of football in the film and TV realm. For instance, the 1998 movie The Water Boy, you play yourself in it. What was that experience like? And I guess you ad-libbed a line that people today still talk about with Brett Musburger.
We ad-libbed most of the entire scene because they handed us a script, and it was kind of stilted, and it didn't sound. I mean, here you got Brent Musburger, one of the greatest of all time, and Adam was sitting there listening to us do the scenes, and he said, "Cut, cut, cut, cut." And he comes up to us and he said, "You guys do this every week, right?" And Brent says, "Yeah, we do. We do games, every weekend." And Adam says, "I'll give you the scenario and you just call it as you see it." And so you tell him Brent Musburger to ad lib and go. I memean, that's perfect because he's the best. And we had a ball doing it, and there was at times during the scenes that I would ask Adam, what are some appropriate or inappropriate words I can or cannot use, and so we went through a list. I said, "Well, can I say poop?" He says, "Yeah, poop is really funny. That's good. Yeah, poop. Yeah, say poop." And so then I said, "Well, we were struggling a little bit at a couple of scenes, and Brent was going on, and I just said, 'Oh, shut up, Brent.'" So, but he
didn't that become a meme, or didn't Brent's wife would always say that to him, or someone in his family?
Oh, I think millions of
after
people
that movie.
Before, during, and after.
Well, yeah.
Questions fly, lightning strikes as answers try. Buzzers ring, chaos in the air. Trivia time, truth.
And it's not going to deal with The Water Boy. It's going to deal with your other acting experience, which was back, I believe, in 1983. You appeared in an episode of The Fall Guy with Lee Majors. And I think you had a scene with Ten Hendricks and Deacon Jones, which appeared scripted to me. But my question to you is, true or false? Lee Majors actually played college football.
That's true.
You are absolutely correct.
Yeah. And I think the highlight of that little episode is that Deacon and Ted and I we were considered bad guys on this football team. That I think our coach was throwing games or something, and and we were part of the it sounds like what's going on today, doesn't it? I got to head a football, and my job at the end of this scene was to slam the ball into Lee Major's gut and tell him, "You better get the hell out of here." Oh, I hit him good and hard too. That was great.
I actually went on YouTube and watched part of the episode, so it's very, very, very funny.
Well, you need to get a life.
You know what's
We've been
funny?
telling them that, Dan, for years.
Yes, my wife and daughter say the same thing. Why don't you use this useless trivia information for something positive?
Yep.
But Dan, you just talked about him. Deacon Jones, you got a chance to play with him early in your career. What was he like? I love Deacon Jones, didn't know a lot about him.
Deacon, obviously one of the greatest, if not the greatest, defensive ends of all time. And he was towards the end of his career, he came to the Chargers, and that's right when my career was starting. And if you know the tradition of rookies getting up and having to sing at dinner during training camp, well, they always start with the number one pick, and he's the guy that gets picked on more than anything. Well, our number one pick in 1973 was a guy named Johnny Rodgers, who won the Heisman Trophy from Nebraska. He decides to go play in Canada with Montreal, and we didn't have a second round pick, and I was the third round pick. So by default, I was the number one guy. And that meant I had to sing almost every night at training camp. And Deacon was the guy who would look at me and he would just say, "Get on your chair and start singing." And Deacon had one eye that would look at you and the other eye wouldn't look at you. And he'd just scare the heck out of you.
And you'd start singing.
Well, yeah, and then he'd go beat you up the next day in practice. So it was, but he was a great teammate, and we became very good friends after that.
Listen to this. The Hall of Fame class of 1993. Bill Walsh, Chuck Knoll, Larry Little, Walter Payton, and Dan Fouts. Damn, Dan, that is a class, man. You got the grades, obviously.
Sports Illustrated, when the Hall of Fame turned 50, okay, it's now over 60 years in existence. But when it turned 50, Sports Illustrated had a poll of all the classes of the Hall of Fame outside of the charter class, which included, Jim Thorpe and Red Grange and George Halas, unbelievable, all those guys that started the Hall of Fame, basically. And the poll came out, and the number one class was the class of 1993.
Well, you got an offensive genius for a coach, a defensive coach to get you the ball back, a guy to block for you, and a guy to hand the ball off to. You're in pretty good shape with those guys.
I felt pretty good about it. The good thing I liked about it, too, is that they induct you alphabetically, so I got to go first.
Get it out of the way. Dan, a lot has to come together to win a Super Bowl. For you, that never happened, but you're in another class of Hall of Famers. Warren Moon, Jim Kelly, Fran Tarkenton, Dan Marino, and Dan Fouts. Hall of Fame quarterbacks to never win the Super Bowl. If you are who your company is, well, Dan, you could do a lot worse. So thank you so much for joining us today on the Past Our Prime podcast.
Been a pleasure, guys. Take care.
As a Raiders fan, this is the ultimate sign of respect. Two quarterbacks scared the crap out of me back in the day. John Elway and Dan Fouts, Hall of Famer through and through. Okay, let's move on. Talk a little high school football. Wave the flag for Hudson High. Hudson, Michigan may be a tiny town with little historical fame, but its high school football team, the Hudson Tigers, has made national headlines with a record-breaking 72-game winning streak under coach Tom Saylor, who transformed a 1-6-2 team into a powerhouse. Who knows when they'll lose next, Mark?
Well, it's really interesting because they talk about in this article how they have a 72 game winning streak. That is unbelievable. It set a record. From 1968 to 1975, they didn't lose a game. But the Sports Illustrated jinx was at work because that winning streak stopped at 72 games. They lost in the Class C state championship game. I named the school, I think, is Ishpeming, Ishpeming. So hopefully I'm not butchering him. But yeah, the streak would come to an end.
Coach Tom Saylor said, our young men met the challenge. We worked hard. We deserve to be where we are because, gentlemen, we earned it. So listen to this. They were 1-6-2 before he got there. They were 85-4-1 after he got there. Not bad.
Impressive.
Not bad, Coach Saylor. Let's stay in the Michigan, Ohio area. One game that makes the season, it's Michigan and Ohio State. And that means Bo Schembechler and Woody Hayes and Billy. These guys had a long history together.
They did. Schembechler was an offensive tackle under Hayes at Miami of Ohio in 1949-1950. Then he was Woody's graduate assistant at Ohio State the following season, and then the Buckeye line coach in the years from 58 to 62. I never knew they had that type of relationship.
Schembechler, like you said, learned under Hayes, adopting his demanding methods, striving for perfection. But he said of Woody, some of the players just couldn't take it. It was too demanding in some things. There was no way you were ever going to win an argument with him, let alone Billy. I mean, they weren't just all arguments. He would get physical with his players.
Yeah, they said once during a staff meeting, Hayes threw a chair at Schembechler, and then Schembechler picked the chair up and threw it back at him. They were very contentious, even when they were, coaching with one another.
God, could you imagine being in that room? The tension would have been just unbelievable. The rivalry produces intense, as you can imagine, close and sometimes controversial games. Hayes leads the series 3-2-1. They would play 4 more times. Schembechler would win 3 of those 4. So in the end, he would win 5, lose 4, and tie 1 against his mentor, Woody Hayes. Golf, and that Palmer is a player. No, not that Palmer. How many times did Sandra Palmer hear that 50 years ago? But her rise is pretty steady, and now she is atop the U.S. Women's LPGA. Billy, how did this young gal, Sandra Palmer, discover the game of golf?
She discovered golf by looking through the school bus window when the bus would pass a golf course. And one day she convinced them to let her get off at the golf course. When she found out she could make money there, she started caddying on the weekends. That's how they did it. Just to think a 13-year-old could convince a bus driver to drop her off at a golf course. I don't know what would happen nowadays, but I don't think it'd be good. So where's your son? Oh, we just dropped him off at the bowling alley.
Yeah.
Just terror. I mean, but for her, it worked out. That's fantastic. She's a, LPGA player of the year in 1975. She's quite the player.
Remember when Amy Alcott on the show and she was talking about how her dad built those sand traps and that golfing for her in the backyard? They could have just met together and
Yeah. But you think about it, nowadays they have schools, they have colleges. I mean, back in the day though, you had to find out a way. You had to find a way to play and someone to help you. It just was not easy.
Yeah, and she's only 5 feet 1.5.
Yeah,
so
that's right.
She's kind of a tiny thing, but she gets mentorship from pros like Harvey Penick and Ernie Vossler. You mentioned she's the LPGA Player of the Year in 75. She wins the U.S. Women's Open. She's tops on the money list this is really an astronomical figure for the LPGA 50 years ago, $75,000. So quite a player. She had some demons that she had to overcome throughout her career, but Sandra Palmer, one of the best women's LPGA golfers of all time. Let's talk a little more college football, shall we? Mark, Tony Dorsett had a decent game.
He sure did. Playing for Pitt against Notre Dame, he beat them literally single-handedly. He had over 300 yards rushing. He had 374 yards of total offense. I mean, the 374 yards of total offense was 67 more yards than the entire Irish team had. Their whole offense. And they blew out Notre Dame 34-20 in that big upset. So Tony Dorsett at his finest, 57-yard run to the left, 71-yard sprint to the right. He had a pass play for a touchdown.
And, this was back when, Notre Dame didn't lose like this. They were a dominant force, and you might beat them, but you weren't going to run all over them unless you're Anthony Davis, the way Tony Dorsett did. So yeah, pretty impressive.
And Pitt earned a bid to the Sun Bowl, which was big for them. But before Tony Dorsett's career was over, they'd be playing for a national championship.
Yeah. Out west, ASU remained undefeated. UCLA and Cal contended for the Pac-8 lead, and USC accepted a Liberty Bowl invite. Billy, John McKay is leaving SC to go to the NFL, and once he announced that, Trojan season kind of went in the tank.
It did. They were 7-0 coming off a win over Notre Dame. And then it got out that John McKay was about to accept the job with Tampa Bay. Well, the whole team, it must have just deflated them. They lost 8-7 to Washington. That alone, that score with USC's offense was shocking. But that's the third straight loss for McKay. Third straight. And he'll actually lose another one to USC.
No, to UCLA.
Excuse me, thank you. You go up 7-0, you lose 4 straight. That team never lost 4 straight, but it just shows you how much that team evidently really loved McKay, and that just basically ruined their season, him going to Tampa.
And down the stretch they come. Let's wrap this up, shall we? Down the stretch we come, as our friend Dave Johnson would say. Billy.
You heard it here for the record.
For the record, Eddie Dibbs.
Eddie Dibbs of Miami. He upset Jimmy Connors in 3 sets during the Dewar Cup tournament in London. Okay, so who is Eddie Dibbs? Eddie Dibbs had 571 career wins, and he's the all-time leader in ATP match victories among players who never reached a Grand Slam final.
Wow.
Dang. And he's also credited with coining the tennis term bagel to describe a 6-0 set.
No way.
Yeah.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah, Eddie Dibbs.
Hey, Mark, earlier this year, we had Mike Torres on to talk about a couple of his former teammates. In 1975, both Tom Seaver and Jim Palmer, they shared a cover back in July of 75 because both guys had down seasons in 74, but were doing pretty well in 75. How did their seasons end?
Well, the Cy Young Award. Seaver and Palmer deserved it. Seaver was 22-9, had a 2.38 ERA. Palmer was 23-11, 2.09 ERA, and he led the majors with 10 shutouts. That's insane.
Yeah, and I think Palmer would end up winning 3 Cy Youngs, and I think this is Seaver's third and final Cy Young. So you're seeing full on their Hall of Fame credentials for 2 of the best of the 70s.
Yeah, I just love Jim Palmer's windup. For a kid, I just thought that was so cool. I used to try to emulate that in the backyard. It's just so cool.
High leg kick.
Yeah, and then Trey Yusevich trying to bring it back a bit, but still just as over the top, man, was just so great.
And he was kind of like a right-handed version of Chris Sale. He was tall, had these huge long legs, you know.
Yep.
So when he did that windup, it looked like his leg was just, he looked like Big Bird, It was so big.
Before the fame, there was the flame. Faces in the crowd.
Mark, all you.
It is all me, And don't you forget that. So I'm going to go with a guy by the name of Ed, got to pronounce this right, Skownowski, Skownewski. He's a senior at Wayne State in Michigan. He's the first quarterback to exceed 2,000 yards in passing and rushing in a career. He's a sophomore. He led NCAA college division quarterbacks in rushing with 85.4 yards per game. But here's the real interesting story, okay, about him. So as good as he was at Wayne State, okay, and he gets a bachelor in education in 1976 and then a master in 1980. But in between those degrees, he still played college football. Now, how could he do that? Well, I guess he could quarterback, in Canada, because he quarterbacked the University of Windsor for 1 year. So I guess there was the Canadian university system allowed someone to do it, with some loophole. So he actually played outside the States. He kept playing in between his degrees.
Faces in the crowd. We like to call him Big Ed.
Yeah, that's right.
Yes, Eddie boy.
From the locker room to your living room, it's time for the 19th hole.
Let's wrap this up with the 19th hole. We each have one on Fran Tarkenton. Bill, you go first.
Sure. This is from Anthony McKine from Fayette City, Pennsylvania. He says, if you recall what happened to Tarkenton against the Steeler defense last January 12th in New Orleans, you can imagine how he would fare against a schedule of top teams instead of having a cakewalk. Fran not only lost that big game, he was humiliated. And we found out why when we had him on our show.
Yeah. He said that, there's 2 weeks off between the championship game and the Super Bowl, and they took the first week off.
While the other team was scrimmaging hard ass.
Yeah.
They're at home. They're at home.
Yeah. The funny thing is, though, especially in the NFL, I could see if you're making that argument, the schedule, like Oklahoma versus, we were talking a couple weeks ago, ASU's schedule. But, you play who you play. And if you're 10-0 and you finish 12-2 in the NFL, you got to beat some. I mean, that's what they're saying about the Patriots. They've had a cupcake schedule. Well, they've had 2 tough games. They won at Buffalo. They won at Tampa Bay. What else are they supposed to do? So I don't know.
You play the teams in front of you. You can't, know if they're going to be good or bad.
Yeah, and you got to win.
Mark. I think the proper saying is you can't please all the people all the time.
Yeah, that is true.
And Mark, what did you say the other day at the UCLA game? You can't win if you're not going to score points.
That's right. If you don't outscore your opponent, you're not going to win.
Yes, that was
brilliant insight from me.
Very right on the money there.
I am.
Mark, you got one?
Yes, I do. It's from Bill St. Angelo of Evanston, Illinois. He says, former Vikings coach Norm Van Brocklin said it all about Fran Tarkenton. He'll win some games that he shouldn't win, and he'll lose some games that he shouldn't lose. That's Fran in a nutshell. And I was thinking from our interview with Fran, he talked about how much he hated Norm Van Brocklin. This is probably why.
Well, I've read a few things about Norm Van Brocklin, and the list of people who didn't like him is rather long. He was not a people pleaser, that's for sure. I'll go last. Eric Amendola from Erie, Pennsylvania. Congratulations to Sports Illustrated and Dan Jenkins on the fine article on the greatest quarterback ever. It's a pity all football fans do not realize the achievements of Fran Tarkenton, not only as a passer, runner, or play caller, but as a human being. Saw this the other day. He made $1.2 million in his 18 seasons in the NFL. He has a net worth now of over $300 million. So very successful in every endeavor. And that includes as being just a good guy. So, all right, that's it. Another week, another Hall of Fame quarterback. 2 weeks ago, it was Fran the Man. This week, Dan Fouts. You can't do better than that, guys.
No, you can't.
No. Especially not with the era we're coming, where a lot of these people may not be around still.
Yep. I mean,
the ones that are.
It almost seems unreal. If you had told me 2 years ago, oh yeah, you're going to have a stretch where you go with, Bill Lee and then Bob Ryan and then Fran Tarkenton and then Dave the Hammer Schultz and Dan Fouts, and then we got Kent Benson and Jim Lampley coming up. It is really almost surreal. So yeah, I mentioned it. Next week, Kent Benson is on the cover of the December 1st, 1975 issue, as his Indiana Hoosiers are about to embark on a historical season. We'll talk with Kent about that perfect run for IU next week. Until then, thanks for listening. Subscribe to the show, please, and don't forget, I'm Scott, that's Bill, that's Mark, and we are Past
Our Prime.
Oh, there we go, Billy. Nice work. Happy Thanksgiving, everybody.